Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It, the podcast to help you fix your marriage. I'm Shy Lewis. I'm here with Nina Roesner. Our mission is to help you, Christian married man or woman, navigate conflict and build connection so you can have a thriving marriage. All right, so we are continuing our discussion around attachment theory and boundaries. We're picking up from where we left off, and we're tackling the attachment style of the dismissive avoidant. Um, Before we get started, I want to direct you guys to our website, greaterimpactwise.org. This is where you can find a free PDF called 5 Tools for How to Stop Walking on Eggshells. We also have a free marriage assessment for you to check out. Based on those results, you can reach out to us and we will get you talking to the right people. All right, so let's get into the topic. Nina, welcome. Curious about if you've had any experience with this attachment style.
I think if you've been on the planet more than 5 minutes, and especially if you have any German heritage, they'll say that. Because it's dismissive and avoidant. Yeah, we're not gonna, no, we're good. How are things? We're good. Even if we're not, we're good.
Wow.
We're gonna avoid conflict, we're gonna avoid problems, we're stoic, you know. Uh that's part of the German heritage is just that. We're not emotional. Nope. Certainly
Wow.
going to dismiss any big concerns here. Yep. And I'm not that, by the way, although I do have a little bit of propensity towards it sometimes. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I've worked with a few of those and it's kind of spot on now that I think about it. So, yeah, it's probably a cultural thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I just want to give a recap for our listeners because there are 4 different types, and even though we're tackling dismissive avoidant, I just want to give you guys an overview. The way that this theory came about, it was through an experience called the strange situation, and this is where they put babies and mothers in a room, and then they removed the mothers and observed the babies, and so they came away with 4 different styles. There's the secure attachment, which is most of us. And then there's the anxious, preoccupied attachment, which we covered last time. And then, of course, the dismissive avoidant. And then the final one is the fearful avoidant, which is the least common out of the 4. It is a blend of the anxiety and the avoidance. But just so you know, your attachment style can change based on trauma, transitions, major life events. It can even vary from one person to another. So, we encourage you to do the work. And whenever you see things rise up that might give you some indication, there's some tips, right? There's some strategies that you can take to maybe behave in a more secure way. We're going to help you with the dismissive avoidant attachment style today and how you can interact with people that might have this attachment style, or if you have this attachment style. Um, yeah, there's some effective and respectful ways you can show up. So, I did a quick search on this style, and one of the first things they suggest is that when you're dealing with a person with dismissive avoidant, is that you need to know what your needs are. You need to be very clear with how you need the conversation to go. And so being firm, being very specific, you even might need to say what your end goal in walking away from the conversation needs to be so that you don't end up veering in a different
Mhm.
direction. So any thoughts on that approach?
It's genius because if you come at them and you don't know where you're going, you're gonna that conversation is gonna end really soon. So having a clear objective, making
Mhm.
sure it's a good time to talk, and then being as brief as possible. Because if you and keeping it to the one topic, which is really hard for women because everything's connected for us. Like we got to let some of that go and really just focus on the objective that we have and moving us from point A to point B knowing what that is and what we want in that situation. And you got to be really careful about managing your emotions because if you want to shut these people down super fast, you get emotional. And they feel like they're like, I'm out of here. I'm done. And it just the stonewalling comes from this particular area often, especially in small conversations. We're just done. And that you'll see it happen with dismissive comments like, well, that doesn't matter you know
Mm-hmm.
so you can stop those things from happening by acknowledging that objection, that dismissive objection in the first place, by saying, I know this is going to be something that you probably don't care that much about, and it really isn't a big deal. And I kind of still need to talk about which school choice we're going to have for Joey next year, because I have a lot of work to do to figure out what needs to happen before that occurs. So we talk about that this afternoon or this weekend, 20 minutes tops. Just want to make sure we're on the same page with that. So you have a very clear, it's business-like communication. And it may not, some women are going, oh, but I just want to be loved. It's like, yeah, you do. We're talking about solving problems now. That's
Yep.
it. That's
Yeah.
all in this space. Because if you pursue both at the same time, you're going to be disappointed. And then you're still not going to know where Joey's going to school in the fall. Like you'll shoot yourself in the foot. So separate those things. I find it that, and this is anecdotal, but my clients that do really well with a dismissive avoidant husband separate their problem solving, and the life logistics that they have to work through from their connection moments.
Mm-hmm.
They keep those things separate. And so when they're needy and needing affection and all of that, they have to be kind of, well, I need to architect a moment here, but I'm not going to combine that with this thing that needs to be solved because
Yeah.
that's a quick way to get things shut down.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you really do have to manage yourself before you even engage with this attachment style.
Well, I think we should manage ourselves 100% anyway as women of strength and dignity, right?
Definitely.
Regardless of the audience that we have, we should know who we're talking to and what we're about in that space, and have the fruit of the spirit of self-control because we've matured to that place. And if we haven't, let's work on that first.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just imagining that conversation because you can easily get distracted if you haven't done that, and that person in there avoiding will make the conversation or could make the conversation go in a completely different direction. And so you got to have the ability to redirect
Yep.
them back
Hmm.
to the goal. Uh,
Hmm.
and that might be multiple times throughout the
Yes.
conversation. Yeah.
Which is a business skill
Yep. Yep.
for
It is.
sure. Are you about the business of family today? But people that work in companies, that's a normal way of dealing with issues. You got to stay on task, stay
Yep.
focused, resolve this thing before you get to the next one. That's just normal.
Yeah.
So,
Very, very true. The second recommendation is we need to communicate calmly with no drama because, like you said, this style, they get overwhelmed by any sign of emotional intensity. So if you're expressing boundaries, especially, you have to do it in a very non-confrontational way, even if you are hurt and in pain,
mhm.
which is like, oh my word, how do you do that?
Well, I'd recommend that you don't. The last time you should ever have a conversation is when you're emotional. Like you should just not say anything. Go
Mhm.
sort your feelings with the Lord, do that thing we call the connection steps, and then come to the conversation rational, regardless of what it is. People are dismissive avoidant because of things that happened, usually in their childhood, where they shut down, and that solved the problem. You know,
Mhm.
they could solve their mother's emotionality or their dad's anger if they just, you know, quieted up, avoided the issue, didn't bring anything up, didn't rock the boat, so to speak. And so when they're around that, that's going to get triggered for them. And that doesn't mean that you don't have a relationship. It means that you're wise in how you interact with them. So you're going to need, ladies, you're going to need, and men, you're going to need a lot of friends, because the emotional, what typically happens, because God's hilarious, is, he's going to make us work through our stuff, is you marry the parent you had the most issues with,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's really typical for a fearful avoidant and or an yeah fearful avoidant to marry a dismissive avoidant, and so you get this anxiety thing, and then both people shut down and nothing gets solved. Or
Hmm.
you have the other one, which is escaping me at the moment, where she chases him around the room and he's dismissive avoidant, so he's leaving the building and she's following him out to his car going, no, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's fearing abandonment, and he's fueling that, by leaving. But he has, and this is one of the things with these guys is that the emotionality really creates a need for space for them. Like they
Hmm.
want to get away from you when you have a lack of emotional control.
Oof.
Yeah, oof, indeed.
Good to know. Hard to do.
Worth
But
doing though, because you got to learn that stuff anyway.
for sure. It'll keep happening if you don't learn
Amen. Yep.
it. All right. The next tip is, oh, don't chase, by the way. Give space. So it's almost like, yeah, you're ahead of the game here. They do say let them know when you're available, when
Mhm.
they're ready to talk. And
Yeah.
it's kind of tricky because you got to hold your ground, but you also got to like give them the freedom, right? So
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's a balance.
You got to be careful about what you choose to talk about. Are you going to make everything an issue? Are you going to turn all of this, the small things, into this big thing because they're overwhelmed really easily? And if you need them later, like if you're wanting to connect with them later and you just want to feel married, for example, then you don't want to talk to them about the conversation you have with your mother-in-law, or, how it went for you at work today. And then also expect that on the same day. Can you increase their capacity? Absolutely. But you got to do that really slowly, and you got to be
Mm,
very choiceful. So if you are upset because you got cut off on the highway, like that's not the person you talk to. You talk to your best friend about that. You
mm,
bring those things to those people. So you're not all of the emotional, needy everything with this person because they can't handle it. And you can draw them out. You can help them build their capacity. And they actually do love you. They really do. It's just
mhm,
they're not going to be the way that you are in expressing that. So giving them tons of space and then asking them. So I know we didn't finish that conversation. We kind of need to. I'm not pushing for it now, but sometime this weekend, probably Sunday afternoon, let's dive in again. Just 15 minutes. We'll put it back on the shelf if we need to. So you give them a notice, you give them, the space to think about what it is that they actually want or don't want, and then you're predictable
mhm.
because they don't handle unpredictability, and that's the part of emotionality that becomes a problem is it's unpredictable and it doesn't feel safe, and so they'd rather escape that and avoid that, and not, and which means they're avoiding you at that point. They don't want to
Mhm.
be around you.
Mhm.
So give them space to process how they're feeling. Don't take it personally. They just don't have big
Yeah,
capacity,
it's a path.
right?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
just how they are. And they'll grow that because God's growing them too. But part of your growth is going to be grace and patience in that space.
Yep. I can relate to that for sure. Patience is so hard. Oh, when you're one of those people that needs to get it done, or you're like you like structure, you like knowing, oh God, that's a hard thing. But it is the Lord. You're
Yep.
right. We marry the
Timing.
people we need to help us grow.
Yep.
So
That's fair.
all right. The next tip is enforce consequences, but do it without ultimatums. So you got to follow through on what you say, because they will test your limits.
Mhm.
Um, and if you state a boundary, be ready to act if it is ignored.
Mhm.
So, any thoughts there?
The example that comes to mind is the wife that wants something in the house fixed, or the fence is broken, or there's something that needs to be done, and she tells the husband about it, and he says, "Yeah, I'll take care of that." And then nothing happens. Right? And then so she comes back and she said, "I know you said you were going to take care of this. Um, the dog gets out every single day now because that hole, from the tree is, the fence, it needs to be fixed. What's your plan with that? I know you've got one." And he
Mhm.
says, "Well, I'll get to it this weekend." And she's like, "Okay, what do you want me to do if you don't?" "Well, I'll get to it when I get to it." "Okay. Well, if it's not this weekend, I need to do something because I can't keep spending this amount of time watching the dog. Like, we have a fenced in yard for a reason. I work from home full time. I can't do this. So I'd love to see you fix it this weekend and save us some money. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to have to do something else." And then do that. Hire a dude to fix the fence.
Mhm.
And then when your husband's mad at you about it, it's like, "Yeah, I know. I wish you would have been able to fix it too. I'm sorry it didn't work out." Yeah, I hear you. Just hear his anger about it, hear his frustration. But you've communicated and
Mhm.
you've moved forward, and you do that enough. It's like they know that if they don't do what they say they're going to do, they're going to have to spend money. And some men don't care about that. And that actually works for them. And they'll say, "Well, why don't you just hire someone?" You're like, "Oh, okay." And that solves your problem. Like, it's really about solving the
Yeah.
problem versus having him be the one to fix the thing. Like, that may not be the best solution. Like, it's hard to say what the no loser policy is here. But if you don't create that in your marriage, you're going to start feeling bitterness and resentment because you're betraying yourself. You're not putting your need out there. You're not saying this isn't safe for our kids, or whatever it is, or, we're not going to have water next week. you know,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So you got to sort those things and then you don't have to get upset though. Just the people equate consequences with, "Oh, somebody's going to be upset." And they probably will be, but you don't have to be. Just because somebody else is upset doesn't mean that you have to be. That's the thing. And we lump those two together. It's like, no, that's theirs. I tried to work this and I did my best and now we're here. Okay. Yeah, it is frustrating. Yeah, you bet. I know you didn't want to spend that money. Yep.
Half the time, that's the thing in the way of making that decision is being okay with the anger, their response. You got to be okay with the consequences as much as they do. And I think also you hit on something major, which is what is the end goal here? It may not get accomplished the way that you want it to. Can you detach from the way that you want this thing to happen and focus on the thing happening? And sometimes that trips us up
Oh,
too.
yeah. Well, my dad always fixed all the things around the house, and my
Mhm.
husband needs to love me like my father did. Your husband's not your dad. Like, stop that. Number one, that's kind of not healthy. Number two, your husband's going to figure out how to love you, but are you making him your God in the
Mhm.
meantime? Because if you can't be okay unless he's okay, hmm, if you're not willing to allow some consequences to happen so that he has to deal with them and grow up, because we both grow up together. Like, women aren't off the hook here, you know. But if we're so consumed with what he's going to say or do, I hear this all the time. "Well, I can't because my husband's going to get mad." It's like, well, okay, so what you're telling me is you married a 4-year-old, because a wise, mature man will take care of his family and his property,
Mhm.
his animals and
Mhm.
things. And if
Mhm.
he's not doing that, then okay, so what if he gets mad? That just means he's coming face to face with, the immature version of himself. And we all did that. We all at age 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 17, whatever, got mad because we had work we had to do. I had to clean a jacket that I didn't want to clean. and it was hard. And my hands were tiny and it had mud all over it. And I thought we should be able to throw it in the washing machine, but it was down. So you had to clean the outside of it with a rag. And it was my fault that it got that way. I was 10 years old. I had never been so mad in my whole life. I was so mad I had to clean this jacket. It was my fault it was muddy. And my dad's like, no, you're cleaning this. And I was angry about it. But that's normal. That's what maturing people do is they get mad over responsibility and they do the thing and then they feel like they accomplished something. Hello. And if you have a parent that's being wise, they'll go, good job. Look at that. That was really hard and you did a good job. And then you're taller and and then you're a different person in that space. And then hard work becomes a thing that you are okay with eventually if you do it enough. So we're in the way of other people's growth when we protect them from their anger. They need to experience that and get over it, grow up through it.
Oh my gosh, that's good. We're in the way of other people's growth. Oh my God. So good. Okay, the next point is do not take their distance personally. You gotta have a really solid identity. You know, they say dismissive avoidance will push you away when they feel overwhelmed, but it's not because you've done anything wrong. It's how they are regulating
Hmm.
themselves
Hmm.
in the discomfort. So you have to really stay grounded in your own identity. Um, but I do feel like it's helpful to know this about them so that you don't take it personally because it's
Yes.
so easy to say, oh, they're rejecting me or whatever it is, the lie you're believing. But it's really, if you think about, oh, they're just regulating themselves, that's a completely different thing going on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ideally, we would give that kind of grace without having to know that about people having an excuse or a reason. Oh, you had a migraine. Oh, you're dismissive avoidant. Oh, that's why oh, like what would it look like just to give people grace to be wherever they're at, no matter how they are, and still call them up to a higher level of being at certain times, right?
Mhm,
To not take
mhm.
any of it personally. I mean, you're
Oh,
not wrong. It helps, but it bothers me that it helps. Because we didn't need to explain ourselves to Jesus. And maybe, okay, maybe he's God and he knew that, right? Like, yes, for sure. But also, he knew and knows our character so much that this is just humans. This is what we do. We're all like this, all of us. So, can we make that level of positive attribution with people and give them grace? That's what I hope for. I'm not perfect at it, by the way. I still feel better when I know why. Not always, but oh,
Yeah, sometimes the why isn't so great, but yeah. I agree. There should be grace no matter what. So help us, Lord, with that.
yeah. Yeah.
And then the final suggestion is you got to know when to walk away. If you're constantly compromising, feeling unseen, starving emotionally, it's okay to choose peace over just trying to make things happen. A relationship should not require you to abandon yourself. So it's okay to walk away.
Yeah. Sometimes people need to get away from an environment that they can't thrive in for a moment. Go live with their mother for 2 weeks while they get grounded again, increase their capacity, and then realize, oh, I don't have any girlfriends, and I'm putting all this pressure on this dude to fulfill all of my relational needs. Like, okay, well, maybe you need a golden retriever and and some girlfriends because this man is not going to change overnight. This woman is not going to connect with you in ways that you love immediately. It's going to take a while because they're like that for a reason. Is God enough for you? Is Jesus and the Holy Spirit, is God enough for you to be okay, regardless of what you get or don't get from people?
Well, on that note,
I'm sorry.
because who's going to argue with you on that?
I
I
know.
mean, that's what this all about boils down to. It's got
Yeah.
enough. that if the answer is yes, then, you know, none of this really matters that much or as much as it did. So, all right. Thank you for that. We're going to hop to the next segment of our episode. This is where we have the question of the day, and we just pull from our clients, our course members, our coachees. Um, there's nothing new under the sun, so chances are you've been through this or you may be going through this soon. So, one client writes, what do you do when you are told that you are a nagging wife? How do you respond to that? Do you just respond like with silence? Do you respond at all? Do you take it to God? What do you suggest, Nina?
Well, first of all, I would say thank you for telling me this.
Mm.
I really appreciate the feedback. Can you give me an example of when I'm doing that? Because we all have blind spots, and there's a lot of things I don't want to be, but a nagging wife is definitely at the top of that list. Oof, right? But we get blind to things. We'd have no idea. So we would want to know. And thank God for the feedback. So we asked that question. And then we would take it to the Lord to find out, is this really true or not? Or are we dealing with somebody that, any kind of anything is nagging? Because that's a thing too sometimes. But usually we're nagging. I'm just, sorry. And you don't want to be that way. Have you morphed into his mother? Have you misconstrued what help is into a
Mm.
space that's mothery and condescending and controlling and that's not an adult relationship with the man that you want to spend eternity with on this side of heaven, your whole life here. So those are questions you want to ask the Lord and explore, but it starts with, oh, thank you for letting me know that. Can you tell me more about that? Like, what's an example of this? And be open to the feedback because in healthy relationships, people give each other feedback
Yep.
and they don't get bent out of shape about it. Like they want to improve the relationship. So receive it, act like a grown up. The end.
The end.
You're going to stop talking to me, I think, after this one.
No, it's just so funny how simply you put it. And we know this isn't easy stuff, by the way,
Right.
but it is pretty simple in concept. It takes the Holy Spirit, but it's very possible, you know, a little work, a little self-awareness, and depending on God, and this stuff does work. So. All right. So, what will you do with the information you have today? Again, check out our website when you have a moment. Also, check out the next episode on how to resolve conflict and learn more about what we do here at Greater Impact. Thank you for joining. We will see you next time.